Hello, everyone. I'm Joel Beya, and welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from GiveMeSport, where every day is usually like deadline day. But today it's different because it's a World Cup special ahead of the draw for next summer's tournament this Friday, the 5th of December. Now, I'm joined by GiveMeSport senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs and Paul Gilmour, who will be both in Washington for that draw, plus some A-list guests. Ooh, who you ask? Well, Fabrizio Romano, of course, an exclusive interview with Argentina World Cup winner Enzo Fernandez, USA boss Mauricio Pochettino, Tim Vickery talking South America, Henry Winter talking England. We'll also take a look at the first timers. And we want to know from you, who do you think will be winning the World Cup and why? You can join us on Facebook, YouTube, and X. And if you're listening back in the future, then please do make sure you're following at GiveMeSport so you can see when all our live shows are taking place and get the up-to-the-minute news as it happens. For more info on any of the stories discussed today, head over to GiveMeSport's website. Make sure you're following us across socials where you can get all the questions and your comments in live on the show. Okay, let's get straight into it. This is Market Madness, the World Cup special, GiveMeSport. Right, before we go anywhere, do you know how the World Cup seedings work? It's pretty confusing, right? Thankfully, Ben Jacobs is going to be in Washington for it, and he's going to be doing his homework. So, Ben, please explain, how does it work?
Yeah, great to be here. You may see I'm wearing my Croatia 98 top, and maybe that's my prediction for a dark horse for the World Cup. They always do well, don't they, even though they're a very small nation. But yeah, the draw is a little bit different. So there's a few key points to note. Number one, it's an expanded World Cup. What that means in layman's terms is that first and second place teams go through from the groups, but there are also third placed best finishers that will also progress to the knockout stage. 32 teams will make it there. In addition, the draw, which takes place on the 5th of December, has a seeding. Now, this really only comes into play if the 4 seeds reach the knockout stage of the 2026 World Cup. So we have, based on world rankings, Spain as 1, the defending champions Argentina as 2, France as 3, and England as 4. And in really basic terms, they are protected, and in the knockout stage, we'll go into a tennis-style bracket being on different sides of the draw if, and this is key, they win their group. If they don't, the protection is removed. Now, because Spain are 1 and Argentina are 2, they'll be on opposite sides of the draw, so can only meet in the final. And the knock-on effect of that is France and England will also be on separate sides, so they can only meet in the final. And those 4 nations will only be on course for matchups in the semi-final. So 4 heavyweights, 3 of which come from Europe, have a chance of a kinder run to the final if they win their group. The other thing to note from the draw is that confederations will have countries separated, including from the interconfederation playoff winners. And the one exception to that is Europe, because there's so many qualifiers that we will see groups with 2 UEFA entrants in them, but there can only be a maximum of 2 from UEFA as opposed to 3. And we will wait and see, based on the draw, how those UEFA countries are allocated. And that's probably the most complicated part of the draw. And of course, Paul Gilmour, who is alongside me, will be hoping that his beloved Northern Ireland are there from the playoffs. And Paul, I understand as well, ahead of the World Cup draw, you've brought a special guest along to this show.
That's right, Ben. Joel as well. Do you know what? I don't know whether it was being at the playoff draw or whether it's listening to you talk about it or preparing for this show, but starting to feel the excitement for this tournament for the first time, with it being so close suddenly now at the end of this season. But there is, of course, as you mentioned, a guest and one item that always gets the juices flowing ahead of a World Cup. And this is the reason. The World Cup football and the Trionda. Of course, it's been out for some time. It pays tribute to the host nations, US, Mexico, and Canada. It features a maple leaf, eagle, and star, and it does, when you look at the World Cup football, it does get you in the mood for the tournament.
No, it really is. Do you have any special memories, guys, of your favorite World Cup balls?
We were talking about this before, weren't we, Ben? I think we think back to South Africa in 2010 and the ball was moving all over the place. There's always seems to be a discussion around the World Cup football, and it kind of triggers a lot of interest. And I don't think this one's fully pumped up, so I haven't been able to test it out yet to see if this one's going to fly into the top corner okay.
The World Cup draw doesn't stop the transfer wheels from turning and turning. In fact, January is just round the corner, and it's a more important window than ever for any player looking to work their way into the World Cup reckoning. Who could we possibly speak to who knows everything and anything when it comes to the deals? Fabrizio Romano, of course. He joined myself and Ben earlier on today, and he has some pretty big revelations to reveal. Take a look at this. Okay, so Ben, we are joined by journalistic royalty, the man himself, Mr. Fabrizio Romano. How you doing, Fab? You good?
Ciao, guys. All very good. All very good. Thank you again.
Great stuff, man. With this World Cup special, we have some questions we want to ask you. And I want to start off with Ghana, focusing on Antoine Semenyo. You think he'll go before or after the World Cup when it comes to transfers? Because he's the man in demand right about now. Is he going to be going before or afterwards?
Look, there is a chance he goes before, I think. There is a concrete possibility because the release clause, £65 million is available already in the January transfer window, not for the whole window. Also to protect Bournemouth not to have the problem with the replacement in a short window like the one in January, but still available in January, at the beginning of the January window. And so I think there is a possibility this clause gets triggered before the World Cup, and so in the January transfer window. There is interest from Liverpool. Also Manchester City are following the situation. I think Man City will go for a winger in 2026. We have to see whether it's going to be summer or January, still not decided. But Semenyo is one of the players they are tracking. Liverpool want to add one more player in that position also, and Semenyo is appreciated. So I think there are some possibilities. Let's see what they decide in the next weeks. It's not something decided now, but for sure Semenyo could be an interesting one before the World Cup.
That's really interesting stuff there. I mean, £65 million, that's someone's going to snap him up. Hopefully it's my club. I want to talk about Harry Kane very, very quickly here. So could he leave Bayern in 2026 or simply extend in Germany before the World Cup? Because he's loved there, right? Everybody loves him there. He's breaking all types of records. He seems happy. What's your thoughts?
He's doing fantastic there and he feels really comfortable there. So at the moment, the situation is very quiet. The release clause for Harry Kane is only valid in January, to be triggered in January and then active in the summer transfer window. That's the plan. So you can't trigger the clause in the summer transfer window, only in January for the summer window. But what I'm told is that at the moment, there are no conversations with any club. So I don't expect the clause to be triggered in January for the upcoming season. The situation is very quiet, it's very calm. Kane is very happy at Bayern. So apart from interest, and it's very normal to have interest from several clubs in a fantastic striker like Kane, at the moment the situation is under control, is very quiet. And also Kane wants to focus on winning every single title with Bayern. Kane is convinced that they can win everything at Bayern this season, and then obviously the World Cup. So he doesn't want to be disturbed by that kind of stories. So at the moment he's really completely quiet and full focus on Bayern.
From England, Fabrizio, to Brazil and Vini Jr. Still no new contract signed at Real Madrid. What's the hold-up, and are Saudi deal makers monitoring the situation?
Yeah, they always loved Vinicius in Saudi, but from what I'm told at the moment, it's still nothing really advanced or still nothing that really entered into important stages. It's just an appreciation for Vinicius, so that remains the case. But at the moment with Real Madrid, the point is about, obviously, the minutes of Vinicius Jr. He wants to be a regular starter at Real Madrid. That's the most important point. And in some cases, with Xabi Alonso, he was not always starting compared maybe to other players like Mbappe. So we have to see how they resolve this case. As you mentioned, for sure, the contract is not, the new contract is not agreed or done yet, and that's why the situation at the moment is on standby. Vinicius is doing his best to help Real Madrid. It's not an easy moment. So at this stage, that's the situation, but there are no advanced conversation with any other club apart from the appreciation that I can confirm from Saudi.
Let's talk about France. Ibrahima Konate, Liverpool optimistic of an extension, and is it true to your understanding that Real Madrid are now out the race?
Yeah, Real Madrid informed Liverpool directly. They have a good relationship, and they informed Liverpool directly that they are not going to advance in negotiations for Ibu Konate. So that was the message from Real Madrid, and Liverpool are aware of that. Now, it depends on the player. So Liverpool are just waiting for the player to decide what he wants to do. Liverpool made their proposal, from what I'm told, to Ibrahima Konate, and was a few weeks ago, not this week and not the past week. So it was some time ago. Now it's Konate who has to decide. Obviously, Liverpool can't wait forever. They want an answer as soon as possible. There is a conversation ongoing. So let's see what Konate decides to do. Real Madrid at the moment have officially left the race for Konate. There are other clubs interested. So now it's on the player to decide what he wants to do. Liverpool are waiting. The proposal is still there, valid on the table.
Now let's move it across to Portugal. You got Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva. What's next for them after the season? Is it true that Bruno has ruled out Saudi? There was a lot of money on the table there. And what about Bernardo Silva? Is Benfica on the cards for a return, Fab?
I think for Bernardo Silva, there are several clubs interested, not only in Portugal. Benfica could be an option, but there are more clubs interested around the world, not just in Europe. So I think that's going to be an interesting situation. Bernardo told his agents that now he wants to focus on this season with Manchester City and then decide later on, but there is a concrete possibility for Bernardo to go as a free agent, from what I'm told. A really, really concrete possibility. So that one is going to be interesting, but it's not only Benfica. And in the case of Bruno, the appreciation from Saudi remains. From Saudi, they tried in the last 3 years to sign Bruno Fernandes. Was last summer, but also in the last 2-3 years, they always tried for Bruno, and he always said, no, I want to stay at Man United. So now Bruno is only focused on this season with Man United to try to do their best possible. Then there is the World Cup. So before that, Bruno will have no distraction. It's a similar situation as Harry Kane. Then after the World Cup, we will see. But at the moment, the situation remains absolutely under control.
Scott McTominay, a.k.a. Scott Maradona. Okay. What can we say about this guy? New hairstyle, new lifestyle. It's unbelievable what we're seeing over there. Is there a possible English Premier League return for him after the World Cup? Because he's doing well in Napoli, but I'm hearing some links. Is there any truth in this?
Yeah, there are links with Everton, but I'm told that there is nothing at all on this one. And also, I'm told that Scott McTominay is very, very happy in Napoli. So he feels very comfortable on and off the pitch. He adapted in a fantastic way with the city, with the fans, with Italian lifestyle. So at the moment, Scott McTominay is very happy at Napoli. There are no conversation with Premier League clubs. It's an important season for Napoli. Didn't start that well for the team. Many injuries, Kevin De Bruyne, Zambonguissa. Now they are back on track, doing very well in the recent weeks, still under Antonio Conte, and the relationship between Conte and McTominay is great. So I can guarantee that at the moment there are no conversations for McTominay back to the Premier League. Then in the next months we will see, but at the moment he's really, really happy at Napoli, and I don't see any movement happening anytime soon.
Let's move it on, Fabrizio, to Senegal. Nico Jackson is a really interesting story in 2026. He could put himself in the shop window at the World Cup. Do you think his Chelsea future is over, and what chances of Bayern making the move permanently?
To answer your first question, yes, I think his Chelsea future is over. I think Nico Jackson will not play for Chelsea anymore. It's a mutual decision from player and club side. They believe that chapter is over for several reasons. And so I don't think Nico Jackson will be a Chelsea player anymore. I mean, he's going to be a Chelsea player at the end of the season, probably because the obligation to buy from Bayern is no longer possible because of the starts of the player. But in terms of interest, Bayern are quite happy with the performances of Nico Jackson. It's too early to say whether they will go and put the money on the table, try to sign him from Chelsea or not. At the moment, Bayern have not made any decision in this sense. They want to focus on this season, try to compete to win as many titles as possible, and then decide at the end of the season. Nico Jackson is ready to fight till the end to stay at Bayern. He's very happy there. But eventually, if he's not going to be Bayern next season, I'm told that there are already several clubs attentive to the situation, because Jackson will be on the market and he's not going to stay at Chelsea.
As for the Netherlands, Sven Botman is at this stage a player I think that a lot of clubs might be tracking, Fabrizio, and yet Newcastle, of course, with their new sporting director Ross Wilson, are trying to tie him down to a new contract. Have they made any progress?
Yeah, there are conversations underway. Now, obviously, is the financial part of the conversation. So we have to see if they can reach a financial agreement between Botman, his agency, and Newcastle. But there is a conversation ongoing. As you mentioned, Newcastle want to keep the player. He's a really important player for them. There has always been a lot of interest for Botman from several countries. Even before joining Newcastle, AC Milan were fighting till the end to sign him, and they preferred to go to Newcastle. But he's always been in the radar of several top clubs. So I'm sure it's still the case. But Newcastle are still confident. They are working on that. It's a financial topic now. Let's see how it's going to advance. But the conversation is ongoing.
And let's move on to Egypt. Mo Salah. Do you think Saudi could try for Salah again this summer? And might Liverpool be open to a sale halfway through his new deal? I think Arne Slot said he's still really important to the project, but of course he was benched at the weekend against West Ham.
Yeah, I would not try. I would try not to be affected by this part of the season. It was a very bad start, not only for Mo Salah, but for several top players at Liverpool, for the coach, for all of them. And so at the moment from Liverpool, the message is very clear. They don't want to judge anyone just because of these 2-3 months that have been complicated for all the superstars at Liverpool, almost all of them. So at the moment, the situation remains absolutely calm around Mo Salah. Then what happens next summer, we will see. But at the moment, they are not trying to find a solution on the market. I can guarantee this, nor the player or the club. So at the moment, everything is still very calm, is still very quiet. Then again, there is an important part of the season to play. We see what's going to happen there. What we know in the market is that from Saudi, when they like a player, they keep that player on their short list. It happened with Bruno Fernandes. It happened with Mo Salah. I'm sure it's going to happen with Vinicius, with Tony Rudiger, with several others that they always keep on their short list. So that's still the case with Mo Salah, but it doesn't mean that they're going to come back. So at the moment, the situation is still quiet.
Fab, I want to look at younger players, younger players that you expect to shine at the World Cup. We've heard a lot about Estavial, Dran Martinez. Who would you have on that list?
I'll give you two. Let's see if they make it to World Cup, because there is still time to see whether they're going to be included in the squad or not, but I hope yes, as a big fan of young talents. One is Nico Paz from Como, Real Madrid future player, because I expect him to be a Real Madrid player at the end of the season, not in January. But Nico Paz is doing fantastic in Serie A. He's absolutely dominating Serie A, together probably with Leao and Lautaro Martinez and Scott McTominay, the best 4 or 5 players in Serie A in this moment. And Nico Paz is a wonderful talent. I think quite underrated on European scale now, but I think he's going to shine at the World Cup with Argentina. He has the quality, he has everything to be a superstar in the future, and Real Madrid are closely monitoring his progress because they want to bring him back to the club in the near future. And the other name, of course, you mentioned Esteval, fantastic talent. I think there are no words left on him. So I wanted to focus on another European one in this case, and this Lennart Karl from Bayern. Let's see if he makes it to the World Cup. But this guy at 17 years old is scoring in the Champions League, scoring in the Bundesliga. Bayern extended his contract last summer, but they already want to have new conversations to improve his salary, because this boy is doing fantastic and they believe in him for present and future. So I think he will have a chance to fight till the end to be at the World Cup. Not easy for Julian Nagelsmann to decide with many players up front, but Lennart Karl is a special talent, and I hope he's going to get there.
Yeah, amazing player. I saw the talent, even though we had beaten them. I saw the talent. I want to say you're going to be streaming on X, right? Which I know everybody's going to be watching when you're live streaming for the first time. It's a big announcement. Can you give us more details, please, Fabrizio?
Yeah, we're going to stream about the draw, to comment, to try enter into all the details on X about this draw. It's a super exciting moment. It's the moment where you understand, obviously, your team, your country, where are they going to play, which kind of big battles there will be on the pitch for your superstars. And so I think it's going to be a super special moment. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be super exciting. Many people trying to understand what's going to happen at the World Cup. And so I think it's like the beginning of the magic of the World Cup. And so to stream live that moment is going to be really special for me. I can't wait for that on Friday.
Fabrizio, before you go, I got to ask you, put away your journalistic credentials, take off your impartiality, and let me ask you a question as an Italian fan. Are you going to make it?
Look, I think it's going to be tough. I know that maybe the draw was quite good for us, but at the same time, we have a lot of pressure here in our country. It's complicated. Last 2 World Cups, we didn't make it. And so the pressure on the players is crazy. I hope yes. If you want my prediction, I say yes, but it's going to be really tough, not easy at all.
Fab, thank you very much for joining us, myself and Ben. We are honored as usual. All the best and keep up the great work. See you on your live.
Thank you, guys. See you there. Bye.
Now, 3 years ago this month, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar was in full flow. We saw one of the greatest finals of all time as Argentina overcame France on penalties. One of the stars of the tournament was Chelsea midfielder Enzo Fernandez, and he met up with GiveMeSports' Ben Jacobs for an exclusive chat. Take a look at this.
Enzo, thanks very much for joining me. The World Cup draw is upon us for 2026. For you, has 4 years ago winning the World Cup with Argentina sunk in?
Bueno, la verdad que significó mucho para mí en lo personal mi primer mundial. Me sentí muy feliz de poder primero jugarlo y segundo ganarlo. Fue todo para mí a nivel personal y grupal también, obviamente, un logro que no se lograba hace muchos años. Y estamos muy ansiosos por ahora, por el que viene y esperemos que sea un gran sorteo para nosotros. Fue una final muy loca a nivel mundial, la verdad que un partidazo. Teníamos controlado todo hasta el minuto 80 y después se vio cómo es el fútbol, cómo cambia todo en un minuto. Un partido con muchas emociones, pero bueno, haberlo vivido y jugado y ganado fue muy emocionante.
And of course it was an emotional moment watching Lionel Messi lift the trophy. How much of a motivation was it to win the World Cup for Messi?
Y la motivación fue muy grande porque, como digo siempre, me crié viéndolo a Leo en casa, en la tele y bueno, después ganar el Mundial con él fue algo increíble que me lo voy a llevar para siempre en mi corazón. Y bueno, venía luchando hace muchos años Leo también a nivel personal, él tenía esa espina, así que nada, un orgullo muy grande poder compartir esos momentos con él, de poder ganar el Mundial junto a él. Sabíamos lo que significaba para él esto, tanto él como para todos obviamente, pero bueno, todos queríamos que por él, porque era lo único que le faltaba a nivel deportivo lograrlo.
Do you remember the first time you met him? Were you starstruck?
Sí, obviamente me impactó un poco porque bueno, es mi ídolo desde siempre, de toda la infancia, todos los momentos que viví y siempre soñé jugar con él, así que sí, obviamente fue un poco de impacto al mirarlo por primera vez, pero después a medida que fueron pasando los años y lo fui conociendo se hizo un poco más normal, el más grande de todos los tiempos, así que compartir vestuario con él es un privilegio muy grande para mí, que disfruto mucho y bueno, cada momento con él trato de disfrutarlo al máximo.
And you were named the best young player as well. How special to get an individual award?
La verdad que no me esperaba ese premio, ni siquiera sabía que existía, pero fue una gran sorpresa recibirlo en la final. Obviamente es un orgullo grande haberlo ganado, porque en el Mundial compiten los mejores y compiten también jugadores chicos. Un momento único porque me llamaron y no sabía qué trofeo iba a recibir y fue, no sé, muy raro para mí, así que nada. Después me acuerdo del día el momento que me lo entregaron, le entregaron también a Leo la bota de oro, el trofeo de mejor jugador del Mundial y a mi Martínez el guante de oro.
It's one kind of pressure trying to win a World Cup. It's a different kind of pressure defending a World Cup. How do you approach the tournament in 2026?
Bueno, vamos a tratar de defenderlo, de volver a ganarlo. Es lo que demanda la selección, es eso. Los argentinos somos muy pasionales y queremos siempre ir por más. Iremos con la mentalidad que se merece defender el título mundial y poder hacer un gran mundial y obviamente ganarlo.
You were trying to win the World Cup in 2022 for Messi. Now it's going to be his final World Cup. So is there same motivation there to allow Lionel Messi to succeed in his last ever World Cup?
Y más allá de que se ganó un mundial, ahora eso ya pasó, ahora estamos enfocados en lo que viene. Obviamente sabemos que puede ser el último mundial de Leo, pero el grupo va a estar ahí obviamente para defender la estrella de Qatar, así que trataremos de hacerlo mejor y poder ganarlo.
Do you see yourself as a future captain of Argentina?
A nivel personal, obviamente, sueño con ser el capitán de la selección, obviamente. Pero no es una decisión mía, sino del cuerpo técnico, pero sí, obviamente, sueño con ser el capitán de la selección.
Do you think that could happen sooner rather than later? Because Lionel Messi is not going to be around forever.
No lo sé cuándo. Dios sabrá y después cuando el cuerpo técnico quiera y tome la decisión, obviamente es uno de mis sueños y estoy abierto obviamente a poder aportar la cinta capitán.
Let's take you all the way back to the move to Chelsea. It was a crazy saga. It happened right at the end of the transfer window. What was going through your head in those final hours? Because there was maybe 50% chance you'll get the move to Chelsea, 50% chance that you would have had to stay at Benfica.
Y bueno, cuando vino a buscarme Chelsea, obviamente no dudé ni un segundo. Quería venir a toda costa, no quería dejar pasar la oportunidad. Todos lo saben, así que nada, gracias a Dios se dio y hoy estoy acá muy feliz.
Is it true that you had to tell Rui Costa directly, please let me leave for Chelsea?
Sí, le dije por favor que me deje cumplir uno de mis sueños, que era venir a jugar a la Premier, a un club grande como Chelsea. Y bueno, por suerte lo pude entender, fue una transferencia histórica, así que nada, de mi parte, obviamente agradecerle por haber aceptado la oferta. Si no hablaba con él, para mí no pasaba. Fue una negociación muy larga, muy difícil, sabíamos de parte de mi agente y de parte de Benfica que Chelsea me quería sí o sí y que iba a hacer lo posible para comprarme, pero bueno, a último momento tuve que hablar con el presidente pidiéndole que me deje venir a Chelsea. Pero el presidente de Benfica quería que me quede 6 meses más porque dice que iba a tener muchas más ofertas, pero bueno, uno nunca sabe de fútbol. Yo quería venir a la Premier, quería venir a Chelsea, así que nada, muy feliz con la decisión que tomé.
So you'd gone from being valued at about 20 million euros to being valued well over 100 million euros. Is the price tag something that you thrive off, or does it add extra pressure?
No, lo manejé, la verdad que a nivel personal muy bien, obviamente. Se hablaba mucho de la transferencia récord y todo lo que se generó, pero más allá de eso, estaba enfocado en mí, en crecer, en demostrarlo dentro de la cancha, representar a Chelsea de la mejor manera y nunca estuve atento a lo que se hablaba, ni nada, ni ninguna presión a nivel personal, sino que demostrar y hacer mi trabajo dentro de la cancha.
What was it about those early days at Chelsea that resulted in results not quite coming?
Estoy acostumbrado a ganar siempre y cuando vine acá la verdad que eran resultados muy negativos. Me gusta ganar, no me gusta perder nada. Obviamente fue un tiempo que viví a nivel personal, estaba muy frustrado por los momentos que estamos pasando, pero todo sirvió para crecer y para mejor, así que nada, hoy en día estoy muy contento por este presente que tiene el club. Fue un momento muy difícil porque cuando llegué hubo muchos cambios, muchos jugadores, técnicos que se iban, técnicos que venían y bueno, muchos cambios en el medio, pero al final Chelsea fue a buscar a Maresca y creo que ahí empezamos a encontrar una base más sólida a nivel grupal, empezamos a tener una identidad de juego y eso fue muy bueno para el grupo y bueno, hoy en día se ve que estamos muy consolidados a nivel grupal, la verdad que tenemos muy buen grupo, somos muy buenos, nos llevamos bien dentro y fuera del campo, así que recién ahora hace año y medio, 2 años, me vengo sintiendo muy bien a nivel grupal.
In those early days, Graham Potter said the squad was so big that not everybody could fit into Cobham. Is that correct? That there were just too many players?
Sí, fue un momento muy difícil, éramos muchos jugadores dentro del vestuario, casi no entramos en el vestuario, creo que éramos 30 y algo de jugadores y fue una locura, pero bueno, ya pasó ese momento, ya quedó en el pasado y ahora estamos enfocados en el presente.
You had an injury, the hernia problem, and you were obviously playing at the same time, and then you would subsequently get it treated in the off-season. How tough was that?
La verdad que fue un año normal, creo que a nivel personal no me encontraba conmigo mismo dentro de la cancha, después tuve una lesión, así que nada, fue un año muy raro para mí a nivel personal, no me sentí del todo bien, así que jugué mucho tiempo con hernia deportiva, la verdad que con mucho dolor, hasta que nada, me cansé, no podía ya rendir al máximo, no podía ayudar al equipo, me estaba traicionando a mí mismo, así que nada, tomamos la decisión junto al médico de hacer la operación, de recuperarme al máximo para volver a estar al 100 para mis compañeros, para mí, sentirme bien dentro de la cancha y bueno, pero fue un momento difícil que pasé a nivel personal, pero bueno, hoy en día eso me hizo más fuerte.
Was it your decision to play with pain and then treat it after the season, or was it the club's decision to have you keep playing?
No, fue mi decisión. Lo tomé yo, la decisión de seguir jugando, continuar jugando hasta que el cuerpo me dijo basta. Así que juntos ahí tomamos la decisión de operarme porque también faltaba poco para la Copa América y no quería perderla. Así que nada, tomamos la decisión juntos de operarme.
You then go away and win the Copa America as well. Talk me through some of your memories from that tournament.
La Copa América, sí, recuerdo un momento muy lindo, obviamente. Habíamos ganado el Mundial, pero sabíamos que enseguida estaba la Copa América, queríamos ganarlas. La verdad que momentos increíbles a nivel personal y grupal, son experiencias que uno como jugador siempre quiere vivirlas y trato de disfrutar cada momento al máximo.
You obviously returned to Chelsea after that tournament, and it was difficult to begin with, but then you ended up being given the captaincy. What did you learn from that period, returning, reintegrating to the squad after the video, and then becoming captain of the football club?
Sí, recuerdo ese momento, lo que pasó, fue un momento muy difícil para mí a nivel personal, sufrí mucho porque no es algo que me caracteriza lo que pasó, pero bueno, siempre entendí la posición de los chicos y lo único que hice primero fue llamarlos por teléfono, comunicarles que no me iba a tomar días de vacaciones, que quería viajar para hablar con ellos personalmente, mirarlos a la cara y decirles lo que soy como persona, los valores que tengo. Lo entendieron y la verdad que hoy en día nos llevamos muy bien, todo quedó en la nada y bueno, gracias a Dios hoy mantenemos una unión muy buena dentro del vestuario.
So it actually strengthened your relationship with the Chelsea squad?
Sí, obviamente que sí, porque bueno, fue un momento duro, pero al final mis compañeros me entendieron. Fue un momento de euforia que no quise causar ningún daño a nadie. Son canciones que se cantan en Argentina por folclore del fútbol, como le decimos nosotros. Y nada, creemos que sí, que fue un momento muy difícil a nivel personal más que nada, y agrupar siempre traté de disculparme y demostrarle a mi compañero que yo no soy discriminador ni esa clase de persona de querer juzgar a los demás, así que ellos entendieron mi mensaje, lo que yo expresé y todo quedó ahí.
But as soon as you arrived back and met up with the squad in America, you apologized, didn't you, in person to the entire squad? So it wasn't just on the telephone.
Sí. No, llamé por teléfono, yo me acuerdo que estaba de vacaciones. Acorté las vacaciones, viajé para donde está el equipo, que hacíamos pretemporada en América, y lo que hice primero al llegar fue ir directamente a hablar con ellos y disculparme en la cara.
It was a big statement though, wasn't it, so soon after that, with Reece James out, be given the captain's armband?
Sí, obviamente el club siempre confió en mí y estoy agradecido siempre porque me dieron la capitanía en un momento difícil, digamos. Pero eso quiere decir lo que siento que represento para el club y para mis compañeros, porque al final confiaron en mí desde un principio y más allá de lo que pasó, no volvieron a desconfiar de mí, sino que me dieron el doble de confianza y eso estoy muy agradecido con ellos.
And now, what would you say your relationship's like with the French players at the club?
No, muy bien, la relación es muy buena, siempre compartimos comidas y eso fuera del vestuario, cuando tenemos cena de equipo y dentro del vestuario, todo normal, nunca pasó más nada porque, bueno, ya saben cómo soy como persona.
In this period as well, several other players arrived, including Moises Caicedo, and I understand that you had a small role to play in him joining Chelsea.
Sí, obviamente cuando me comunicaron del club que estaban interesados en Mo y que estaba casi a punto de venir, me comunicaron a mí y bueno, yo lo primero que hice fue llamarlo por teléfono, insistirle que venga, que queríamos tenerlo en el club y bueno, gracias a Dios se pudo dar y hoy está con nosotros acá en Chelsea. Somos amigos, compartimos muchos momentos dentro y fuera del campo y la verdad que, como digo siempre, palabra de admiración hacia Moy, es una gran persona, un gran profesional que siempre intenta dar lo mejor de sí mismo para el grupo, así que nada, muy contento de tenerlo a Moy de compañero.
Why do you think the partnership on the field of you and Moises Caicedo works so well?
Bueno, funcionamos bien porque cumplimos roles diferentes, creo. Moy trabaja en una parte mucho más defensiva del equipo, yo más ofensiva y bueno, pero tratamos siempre de ayudarnos uno a otro, de competir al máximo juntos para poder llevar a Chelsea a lo más alto.
So coming back to Chelsea, you return, you play regularly, you're fit, you start captaining the side, and obviously the big change is Enzo Maresca. What do you think he has brought to Chelsea?
No hay una identidad de juego muy clara. Y en base a eso se ven los resultados dentro de la cancha y al final todo eso trae después que el día a día sea mucho más fácil, que la amistad con los compañeros crezca y bueno, eso todo lo que creo que nos aporta Enzo, pero lo que más remarco es cómo nos guía cada día en los entrenamientos, cómo nos enseña y eso es muy bueno para el grupo.
You can play 6, 8, 10. What is your favorite role?
Sí, bueno, con los anteriores técnicos jugaba en una posición más posicional de número 6 y hoy en día con Enzo estoy jugando mucho más adelante, aportando gol y asistencia al equipo que bueno, tengo menos contacto con la pelota pero más llegada de gol, así que nada, no tengo una posición favorita, sino que donde me ponga, donde decida ponerme el técnico, siempre voy a estar disponible y voy a querer jugar.
And Chelsea had another midfielder that did the same, Frank Lampard. Do you like it when you're sort of compared in some ways to a player like him?
No, obviamente escucho a la gente que compara, obviamente, pero Frankie, una leyenda acá del club, es un jugador histórico, la verdad que ha marcado una época acá, no me comparo con él para nada. Es más, me falta mucho para llegar a ese nivel, así que nada, trato de hacer mi carrera. No me gusta compararme, pero sí, obviamente, siempre me he fijado en él. Como mediocampista, la verdad que ha aportado mucho a nivel historial del club, a nivel historia, de títulos y todo. Es un jugador muy importante para Chelsea.
How aware were you of Chelsea's history, of some of the Chelsea legends like Lampard, Terry, Drogba, before you joined?
No, informado estaba porque miraba siempre la Premier y miraba siempre Chelsea. Sabía todo lo que lograron y después verlos personalmente acá fue también muy chocante. Pero bueno, siempre tratando con respeto, saludándolo, no hablando mucho, sino escuchando más que nada. Así que sí, fue muy impactante verlos en persona acá en vivo. De Lampard acá en el Chelsea, de John Terry, de Makelele, de muchos jugadores que pasaron acá. Esos momentos los recuerdo siempre porque miraba la Premier cuando era chico con mi papá en la cama. Miraba muchos equipos, miraba Chelsea, miraba Manchester United, miraba el Kun Agüero también, me acuerdo.
And the first season under Maresca last season was obviously very successful. Champions League, Europa Conference League, Club World Cup as well. Do you think that's the first year where this Chelsea project is suddenly starting to show its potential?
Sí, creo que es el primer año que se está viendo el proyecto que armó Chelsea. Se está viendo dentro de la cancha estos últimos años, así que la verdad muy contento lo que se logró el año pasado, pero no nos quedamos solo con eso, sino que queremos seguir compitiendo en el más alto nivel, competir por la Premier, por la Champions y creo que vamos por buen camino. Y a partir de enero empezó a cambiar todo, a fluir todo de nuevo, así que nada, obviamente terminamos la temporada muy buena, clasificando a Champions, ganando la Conference. Y un momento muy lindo a nivel personal, poder hacer un gol en una final es una sensación muy linda que sentís, más jugando para Chelsea, así que fue un momento muy lindo para mí en mi carrera. Después ganando el Mundial de Club, así que creo que fue un gran año para nosotros.
So if we move on to the Club World Cup, we can see your medal sitting over here. How did you approach the summer, first of all? Because it basically meant the Chelsea players got no break.
Sí, la temporada obviamente fue muy larga, muchos partidos. Y la verdad que no me preocupa tener muchos partidos. Me gusta jugar al fútbol, disfruto de lo que hago. Y nada, estoy contento que tengamos muchos partidos durante el año. Sabíamos la importancia que tenía jugar el Mundial de Clubes, representar a Chelsea. Obviamente lo queríamos ganar y por suerte, gracias a Dios, se dio. Fue un momento muy lindo a nivel grupal que vivenciamos ahí en ese mes y medio que tuvimos en América. Y bueno, me lo voy a llevar siempre, me lo voy a guardar en mi corazón.
It's not often Chelsea would ever be an underdog, but is it fair to say that you were in the final against Paris Saint-Germain?
Sí, sabíamos que PSG era el favorito porque venía de ganar la Champions, venía a hacer un año espectacular. Pero nosotros sabíamos que teníamos nuestras armas, confiábamos en nuestro equipo y creo que se vio reflejado en la final que fuimos superiores. Fue un partido muy loco. Creo que el primer tiempo fuimos muy superiores, presionamos muy bien, hicimos un partido a nivel táctico muy bueno, así que se nos dio la final a nosotros, gracias a Dios pudimos ganar.
And then in that game, Cole Palmer was obviously outstanding. I suppose that comes as no surprise to you because you see it every day in training.
Palmer es un jugador excepcional, lo digo siempre que tengo la oportunidad de decirlo. La verdad que es un chico que entrena muy bien también, se ve su calidad cada día en los entrenamientos y en los partidos, así que estamos muy orgullosos de tenerlos como compañero y que representa a Chelsea.
How much of a statement does it make to beat the Champions League champions and now have the gold badge on your shirt for 4 years?
Y significa mucho, obviamente, llevar el parche de campeón del mundo es un privilegio muy grande que tenemos como institución, así que tratamos de en cada partido demostrarle al rival de lo que estamos hechos, así que es un privilegio muy lindo de poder llevarlo.
There was a fun moment when you were lifting the Club World Cup trophy and Donald Trump came and celebrated with you. What did you make of that?
No sabíamos que iba a estar ahí para darnos la medalla, yo no lo había visto, fue una sorpresa que no es la medalla, pero fue un momento muy divertido.
So if it all goes according to plan, Chelsea could have a 70-game season this campaign. What are your goals for this season?
No, mi objetivo a nivel personal, tratar de siempre estar disponible para poder ayudar al equipo, dar lo mejor de mí en cada partido, poder ayudar al equipo a ganar, así que nada, dar mi 100 siempre. Lo que puedo mejorar a nivel personal, creo que más la pegada desde afuera al área, siento que lo tengo, pero que obviamente es un punto a mejorar.
Are Chelsea title contenders?
Sí, obviamente hay muchos competidores, hay un montón. Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, todos los que están arriba hoy en día peleando ahí. Hay equipos muy fuertes en la Premier, todos los partidos son difíciles, así que sí, hay muchos competidores, obviamente.
And how far can Chelsea go in the Champions League?
Sabemos que la Champions es muy difícil, obviamente, pero vamos a tratar de llegar hasta la final, obviamente. Como institución lo merecemos, creo que venimos haciendo bien las cosas y que esperemos poder estar ahí. Es lo que trato de mostrar dentro de la cancha, que soy muy pasional. Siempre soñé con jugar en la Premier y más en un club como Chelsea tan grande, y obviamente ahora que estoy acá trato de dar mi 100 cada día, de dar mi 100% en cada partido, y bueno, hoy en día estoy acá tratando de haciéndolo de la mejor manera y disfruto cada momento con la remera de Chelsea.
It's been great catching up, and thank you for being so generous with your time.
Thank you.
Ben, I have to say, another fantastic job. You seem to be getting around, you do.
Well, I tell you a little secret. We'll be speaking to the Canada manager, Jesse Marsh, as well after the World Cup draw. But fascinating to chat with Enzo Fernandez. And one of the key takeaways, Joel, was that he said he wants to be Argentina captain one day. Remember, if Reece James is out, Enzo Fernandez wears the armband for Chelsea. If it is to be Messi's last international tournament, then the captain's armband for Argentina will be available, and maybe Enzo Fernandez will be a contender. You can find that interview on the GiveMeSport YouTube, across our social media, and of course, it's all over the GiveMeSport website as well.
Brilliant stuff, Ben. Thank you for doing the announcements right there. Always on the ball you are. Paul, I want to ask you, obviously this is Lionel Messi's last World Cup. Well, he was saying he wasn't going to play now, but we all knew it was going to happen. What's your thoughts on it being his last World Cup?
Yeah, well, firstly, great interview that to hear from Enzo Fernandez, absolutely fantastic. And I think with this World Cup for both Messi and Ronaldo, actually, both of these players will move on to their 6th World Cup, and that will be those two joint top together for the most appearances at a tournament for any players. So you would think that's the time to go. The age does catch up with everyone. Ronaldo's already hinted that it'll be his last, and so over to Messi. Does he then see it as, well, Ronaldo's going to give it up, so maybe I'll go outright lead and go to 7 World Cups? But again, just age determines that. It does feel like this is the last hurrah for both of these players. We've been so fortunate to see both of them over so many years, and we've been really entertained by both. And this is one last chance. It just feels that way, doesn't it? That the natural out is the World Cup this summer in America, Canada, and Mexico. Obviously, Messi got his hands on the trophy. The big question, can Cristiano Ronaldo? But
Cristiano Ronaldo will be 41 by the time this World Cup comes around. So perhaps it's no surprise that he's confirmed that this will be his last major tournament with Portugal. But what's more surprising is that he told our friends at the Touri's Global Tourism Summit in Saudi Arabia that he might have a few years left in his legs after the World Cup to play until he's 50. That's right, 50 years old.
Well, the soon for me, I mean, in 10 years. In 10 years. So the people realize that when I say soon, it's in 6 months, 1 year. No, I'm joking. When I mean soon, I'm gonna back in the days and tell you, I'm really enjoying the moment right now. As you know, in the football, when you reach some age, you count the months very quick. So the moment is good. As I tell you before, I feel very good in this moment. I score goals. I still feel quick and sharp. I'm enjoying my game in the national team and Al Nassr. But of course, let's be honest. When I mean soon, it's probably 1-2 years. I'm still be at the game.
So you expect this World Cup to be your last? Do you?
Definitely yes, because I will be 41 years old, and I think will be the moment, and in a big competition. That's I don't know yet, as I told you before, I'm enjoying the moment. But when I mean soon, it's really soon, because I give everything for football. I'm in the game for the last 25 years. I did everything. I have many records in the different scenarios in the clubs and also in the national teams. I'm really proud. So let's enjoy the moment, live the moment.
Cristiano Ronaldo there speaking at the Touri's Global Tourism Summit in Saudi Arabia. He's still scoring outrageous goals, and the big news, Ben, is that he will be playing from the start of the World Cup. No?
Yeah, the big news, but the contentious news as well. And Cristiano Ronaldo was sent off against Ireland, a game Ireland won 2-0 for elbowing Dara O'Shea. It comes traditionally, basically as a default, because it's violent conduct, with a 3-game ban. One of the suspensions got eaten up in Portugal's final qualifier against Armenia. 2 games were thought to be left, which means Cristiano Ronaldo would, if those games had resulted in a suspension, have missed game 1 and 2 of the World Cup. But FIFA have decided to suspend those 2 games, taking into account the fact that it was Ronaldo's first red in over 200 internationals. And unless he proves himself to be a repeat offender, those 2 suspensions will not be in force for the World Cup, because it's a suspended ban rather than an immediate one. Now, of course, Paul, everybody wants Cristiano Ronaldo at the World Cup, particularly FIFA, and marketing will come into it as well. But this simply goes against the rules and all precedent. And my understanding is that after the draw, certain sides that are in Portugal's group might even take legal action and could go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So, Paul, Ronaldo will be there, but his presence in those first 2 games will be hotly debated.
Right. We've already visited Argentina. So how about a trip to Brazil? It's time to take a look at the South American and Central American teams heading to the World Cup. In a moment, we'll be hearing from the USA head coach, Mauricio Pochettino. But before that, let's check in with South American football expert, Tim Vickery, who's been speaking with the one and only Mr. Ben Jacobs.
Tim, great to see you as ever. We've just heard from World Cup winner Enzo Fernandez about Argentina defending their title. What odds do you think of back-to-back World Cups for Argentina?
Well, the first point that has to be made is that what Argentina are trying to do is what no team has ever done before. It's tough to retain the World Cup. No one has ever retained it, won the second one in a different continent. And North America is a very different continent from South America. Just to give people perspective, because sometimes this isn't that understood, the distance just between Buenos Aires and Mexico City is further than that between London and a number of cities in India. And we're going well above that all the way to Vancouver and Toronto. So it's a different hemisphere. It's a different climate, different everything. So history tells us it can't be done. Can they do it? Well, they've had a pretty good time, you know, Argentina, since they won the World Cup in 2022. They won the Copa America last year, and they qualified top by a street of South America's World Cup qualification campaign. And also, and I think this is important, they are not a team which is as dependent on Lionel Messi as they were in Qatar. There's still no 100% official confirmation that he will play. I think he will. But the line is always, yeah, if I can do myself justice, if I can do myself justice. The good news, both for him, I think, and for the country, is that they've learned how to play without him. And sometimes, I'll have to whisper this just in case. Sometimes they've even been better without him, Ben. And in the final of the Copa America, he went off injured and they got better. And the outstanding display of this cycle has been when they absolutely thrashed Brazil 4-1, and he wasn't playing in that one either. So especially the partnership which is developing between 2 players now together at Atletico Madrid, Thiago Almada and Julian Alvarez, that is what they look to when they don't have Messi. A couple of problems. One is that they haven't really replaced Di Maria. Di Maria retired from international football after the Copa America last year, was such an important player for them, especially on the big occasions. And they haven't really been able to find anyone else to come in with those one-against-one skills. And there was a hope it was going to be Alejandro Garnacho. He hasn't come through yet. Can he come through in time? And the other possible problem, which I think is the major one, is that they haven't been able to renew the defensive unit. It's the same defense that we saw in Qatar. And if you remember, Ben, in game after game, that defense nearly collapsed. Against Australia, against Holland, and in the final against France. So it's a worry, I think, that they haven't really developed new defensive talents. And I think you have to think, with the extra knockout game in this expanded World Cup, that surely if that defense collapses again, one time they're going to pay the ultimate price.
Let's move on to Brazil. Is this going to be the World Cup of Estevão Willian?
Oh, yes. I mean, had you said this, I remember saying this on Brazilian TV a few months ago, that I think Estevão is going to be more important to Brazil's World Cup bid than Neymar. That didn't go down well at the time, but it looks to be spot on now on how he has come on. And he doesn't seem to feel pressure or responsibility. His first start for Brazil was Carlo Ancelotti's first game in charge. So Ancelotti immediately identified this player as one that can give him a return. And between September and November, he scored 5 goals for his national team. Took Vini Jr. a long, long time to get to 5 goals for Brazil. Estevão is there just like that. Brazil have undoubtedly improved greatly since Ancelotti took over. Massive improvement. And he's got them in some of the friendlies that they've played. He's got them firing together with 4 up front, with Estevão from the right, Vini and maybe Rodrigo from the left, and Mateus Cunha through the middle. In order for this to work, they've got to work back. They've got to get behind the line of the ball and work back. This is why Ancelotti said, I think it's a very interesting quote. He said he's not interested in anyone going to the World Cup who's thinking about being elected the World Player of the Year. Not interested in that. I'm interested in people who want to work for the side. And that may well be a message to his old friend Vinicius Jr. They worked so well together, and Vinny got in all that fuss about losing the award to Rodri, and I think Ancelotti's it's a message there to Vinny. We want you to be the most collective Vinny that you can be, and then you can help us, and we can give you the platform to shine. A big question is that, can they play this way? Can they play 4 up front in the extreme conditions of heat that some of the World Cup, much of the World Cup, is going to be played in? Because it leaves them with 2 men in midfield, and one of them is Casemiro, who will be 34. Can they do that all through the World Cup? When Casemiro, for example, is liable to pick up bookings and suspensions. He was suspended from that fatal quarter-final against Belgium in 2018. His legs are now 8 years older, and this World Cup is going to be played in heat. Can Brazil play that way in the conditions in which the World Cup is going to be played? That's a fascinating one as well. But if they can't, then Ancelotti, during the tournament, will raise an eyebrow, Roger Moore style, and try and find another way for them to play. And the thing you mentioned, so many of the third place sides going through, that gives you a little bit of a margin for error in the group stages while you're still trying to find your most effective team for the conditions. But one thing I think we can guarantee with Brazil, you look at the attacking talent that they have, no one is going to relish facing that. Brazil also, it's been a long, long wait. Their last World Cup was 2002. It's been a long, long wait for World Cup win number 6. A few months ago, you'd have said no chance. Now, with Ancelotti at the helm, they're in the mix as well.
I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on Ecuador. We know about Moises Caicedo. Kendry Páez expected to be part of the squad as well. Chelsea signed the 16-year-old Dena Ordonez, who's seen as a generational talent in defence. This World Cup likely coming a bit too early for him, but there's a lot of young talent, isn't there, coming out of Ecuador? When is it going to pay dividends? 2026, or will they have to maybe wait until 2030 and beyond?
A lot of that talent is in defence. Pacho, Paris Saint-Germain. Hincapié, who's just joined Arsenal. Another Ordóñez, another young Ordóñez who plays in Belgium at the moment. I'm sure he's going to be in the Premier League soon. I'm sure he will be. That defensive unit, the last 11 rounds of World Cup qualification, they conceded 1 goal. 1 goal. They are unbeaten now in that 11 plus 4 friendlies. So they're 15 games unbeaten. And yet, the coach, Argentine Sebastian Becasech, is under quite a lot of pressure. Why is that? Because it's proving so hard for them to score goals. The talent that they've had coming through, so much of it is in defence. For goals, they are still dependent on Enner Valencia, their goal scorer in the World Cup of 2014, as well as 2022. And he now is really at the veteran stage. So that is the big worry for Ecuador. Where are the goals going to come from? Another worry is that Moses Caicedo is suspended for the first game. So it's a godsend for Ecuador, the fact that from so many of the groups, 3 teams can go through, because that gives them a little bit of margin for error. They are big, physically imposing, and they defend extremely well. But at the moment, the question you have to pose is, where are the goals going to come from?
And from the other qualifiers from South America, we've mentioned Argentina and Ecuador, who were both excellent in qualifying. Colombia and Uruguay, I believe, were ahead of Brazil in terms of the standings to actually reach the World Cup. Who stands a chance from countries that we haven't mentioned that might make, let's say, quarterfinals or beyond?
Well, Colombia, I think you certainly have to put them in that bracket. They were the form side in the continent until that Copa America last year, where they lost in the final to Argentina. They had a wobble afterwards, but they're now 9 games unbeaten, and they're an interesting side. I think over-dependent on the duo of James Rodriguez and Luis Diaz. And James Rodriguez, who doesn't seem to play well for clubs anywhere, reserves all of it for the national team. And Luis Diaz has been in wonderful form for them. You take those 2 out of the mix, and I'm not sure that there's enough extreme quality to get them beyond the quarterfinals. But they're certainly an interesting team. Uruguay is a fascinating case, because the coach, of course, Ben, is Marcelo Bielsa. And when he took over, it looked like a good mix, because Uruguay had to go through a generational change. Bielsa loves working with young, dynamic players. And you look through that lineup, the likes of Valverde, Darwin Nunez, some of the wingers that he's got, you thought, yes, there could be raw material here for a Bielsa side. And they started off extremely well. And then during the Copa America in the middle of last year, the wheels seemed to come off. Shortly afterwards, Luis Suarez retired from international football, and he retired in a blaze of fury. He called a press conference when he spent a long time attacking Bielsa and saying that the relationship between Bielsa and the players has broken down. Bielsa, if he walks past them in the corridor, he won't even acknowledge their existence. And it seems that things are very, very badly wrong in the camp. They're set up to attack. It's a Bielsa side. In 8 of the last 12 World Cup qualifiers, they didn't manage a goal. They haven't been creating very much. Last week, a real low point, or a few days ago, 10 days in the last FIFA dates, a real low point. They lost 5-1 to the United States. And Uruguay were closer to full strength than United States were. It was a massacre. It was 4-0 before half-time. There was a lot of rumour there. Is Bielsa going to be sacked? Apparently not. Is he going to resign? Well, he called a press conference when he spent 2 hours heaping abuse on himself, saying what a difficult person he is to get on with. He's toxic. He makes everyone around him worse because all he does is see the mistakes. But he says he's not going to resign. He is fully committed to taking Uruguay to the World Cup. Now, he probably has never really been a tournament coach. He's been better where he can, because the problem with tournaments is there's always that tendency just to burn his players out with too much running too early. So in the extreme heat, that's going to be a problem. Playing the Bielsa way is going to be a problem. The relationships in the camp seem to be a problem. So at the moment, I fear for Uruguay. Something is going to have to change radically if they are to mount a serious challenge in the World Cup. And the other team, which is qualified automatically, is Paraguay. Now, Paraguay looked to have no chance in the middle of last year. And then in stepped in a new coach, the Argentine Gustavo Alfaro. He took Ecuador to the last World Cup, did a wonderful job there, and he's done a terrific job with Paraguay as well. They breezed through it in the end, and he's found a way to get the best out of Julio Enciso, who was formerly with Brighton, now playing his football in France. Do Paraguay have enough quality to really make an impression in the tournament? Well as Enciso, they have Diego Gomez of Brighton, Miguel Almiron, the former Newcastle winger. So there's some pace there on the counter-attack, and you can usually rely on Paraguay to defend with great resilience. Whether that mix is going to be enough to get them as far as the quarterfinals, which is the best they've ever done. They gave Spain a tough game there in their last World Cup match, the quarterfinals of the 2010 World Cup, where they gave Spain a really tough match. Could they do something similar? Possible, but I really can't see them going beyond.
Now, let's take a closer look at the tournament hosts, starting with the USA. Their head coach, Mauricio Pochettino, actually played in the 2002 World Cup for Argentina. And did you know it was Pochettino's foul on Michael Owen that led to the famous penalty scored by David Beckham for England to avenge his red card against Argentina 4 years earlier? Poch heads into the tournament with the weight of expectation from a country who've invested heavily in their national team, who've reached the last 16 when they hosted in the 1994 tournament. He's been speaking with Ben, and it's fair to say he cannot wait.
We are going to start to feel the World Cup. Now is the excitement of the to see very close, the World Cup, but when the draw will be there in the 5th of December, is going to be the true, and going to start to see our opponent, and I think the people start to feel in a more complete and full, with full motivation, the World Cup.
What are your minimum expectations on the field for the tournament?
It's about to win, because I come from Argentina, and then from Europe, and from England, and we are so competitive, and that is in our blood. And also knowing that it's going to be difficult, but I think our mentality is about to win every single game, and to compete with not fears, and thinking in that we can beat any team.
That means, though, logically, you think you can win the entire tournament?
That is important to really believe that we can compete in our best, and then with our quality to try to be intelligent in the way that you build the team and how you are going to compete. Again, these big teams, talking about Spain, talking about Argentina, talking about England. I think we can be very competitive and create and build a very good team to compete. And then win or not win depend on the many factors, but I think the mentality is about to win. That is the culture that we are creating in the federation after 1 year. We are so happy about how we are translating this mentality.
The Club World Cup came to America and in some ways was a dress rehearsal for the World Cup. We got to see some of the stadiums and the international fan bases travelling, and your former club Chelsea won it. Did you watch much of the tournament? And if so, what did you make of it?
I think everyone that was involved there enjoyed about the tournament, the Club World Cup. And I think that proves that how good is going to be the World Cup, because the capacity of the people there in America to build this type of event, I think they have an amazing capacity to create good environment. And it's going to be, I think, really, really nice because they have experience, and testing in the Club World Cup, I think, was like a World Cup in clubs, no? And I think now to reproduce the same way, and I think for sure they're going to take the experience, and for sure they were learning about and to be much better in the next summer.
Both your former clubs were in the final,
Yes.
Chelsea and PSG. Were Chelsea worthy winners?
Yes. I think they were better than Paris Saint-Germain in that game. That showed that in a short period of tournament, how important it is to arrive in a good form, no? And I think Chelsea was a fair winner.
When they lifted the trophy, Donald Trump stayed in, and he was there celebrating with Reece James.
Yes.
Did you find that quite amusing? And what chance of Mauricio Pochettino lifting the Jules Rimet trophy and Donald Trump standing right next to him?
For sure, I will give, in case to win, I will give the trophy, and he can lift the trophy. For sure. No problem for me. No, it was really nice. I think the president was there and supporting soccer, massive event. I think it's true that maybe he's not a football person or soccer person. He was a little bit in a situation that he didn't know what to do really, but yeah, it was funny. It was funny, and that is America.
If we talk a bit more technically about your US men's national team, the formation has been a bit fluid, and you've changed it across the last year. You've also rotated, as you would expect, various players to work out who your best 11 might be. Are you now fixed on a style and a formation, or will it be quite fluid next summer?
The philosophy and the style never is going to change. It's a concept that we love. That is our identity. It's about to respect the football that we like to play, no? But then in the formation, yes, we are going to use different formation. We are using different formation in the last few games to try to provide the team the flexibility to find, the best performance because on the characteristics of the player, no. I think it's important for us to try to provide the formation that the player can feel more comfortable on the pitch, and at the same time to respect our identity and the way that we want to play, being flexible and being very intelligent in the way that we are going to play, how we want to damage the opponent, and also at the same time how we're going to create the organization to try to stop the opponent not to damage us. I think that is the most important for me things in the moment.
And I'm keen to get your thoughts specifically on set pieces. And the reason for that is because in England, we're seeing a real push and emphasis towards them. Arsenal and their corners, Sunderland and their long throws. What have you made in the Premier League of more sides spending more time practicing set pieces, even things like long throw-ins? And is that something you're thinking about for the US men's national team ahead of the summer?
Always, for me, set pieces were key. But now I think it's my obligation to recognize a coach like Tony Pulis when I arrived here, that he was in Stoke City. That he, in my mind, when I am seeing all these type of things, I say, wow, how good was Tony Pulis? He was in advance of everyone, every single coach, because he already was working more than maybe 15 years ago. And now it's fashion, no, to work in throw-ins or in more than as normal, no, in set pieces, or maybe give more, be more important set pieces than another part of the game. I love Tony Pulis, and I want to say, well done, Tony. You were amazing, and all the people that sometimes say, "Oh, how they play, and it's not the football that we like." Look now.
And then bringing it back to you and the World Cup to finish, before we speak about the US men's national team, I have to ask you about your native country, Argentina. They're the defending World Cup champions. Are they the favourites to defend their World Cup title?
I believe that Messi is going to be ready to defend the title. Argentina is today is the best team in the world, and they have amazing players, and with Messi, even it's much better. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to beat Argentina. It's going to be a challenge. Never easy for Argentina to in a row to win another World Cup. It's not going to be easy, but I think they are very solid and consistent.
But you think it will be Messi's last major tournament with Argentina?
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Difficult to say. Maybe he said maybe it's the last one, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see, because he's still in form. When you watch the games in MLS and now in playoff, he's scoring goals in every single game, and we'll see. Maybe people can say yes, maybe it's the last one, but maybe no.
And then finally, bringing it back to the US men's national team, you said earlier the mentality has to be about believing they can win every game. So logically, as I said earlier, you could be lifting the trophy at the end of it. But for you personally, standing in that dugout, opening game of the World Cup, home World Cup, there's obviously a lot of pressure, isn't there? What for you, not necessarily your team, but for you personally, what will constitute success?
For me, being successful is going to be if you arrive to the last day in the final in New York and you with your team, you present, your possibility to win the trophy. Because, like I said before, we are competitive, and in my blood is about to win. And even if sometimes you think, or the environment really don't believe that it's possible, we want to make that feel that it's possible. And I want to win, and not to thinking, okay, maybe that is going to be successful to be there. No, for me, it's about to win every single game. Playing against Argentina, playing against England, playing against Spain. We are going to go to the game thinking that we can beat them.
Great interview there, Ben. Okay, so a bit of back chat on this interview with Mauricio Pochettino. What's your thoughts?
Well, he said that he thinks America can win it, which is obviously quite ambitious. They've got home advantage. I also asked him about USA 94 and how there wasn't much of a post-World Cup impact. And Pochettino feels there's more of a buzz around US football, or soccer as they call it. So he expects a legacy as well. And then, of course, the big question is whether Mauricio Pochettino is going to stay on beyond the World Cup, because many people feel he might do this tournament and then return to the Premier League. So it's a big tournament for America, some established players like their captain, Christian Pulisic, some decisions to be made over older players, who's going to start in goal, Tim Ream, who is in his late 30s now, but still very influential on and off the field, and Balogun as well, who used to be your very own Arsenal, Joel. Could he set the World Cup alight as well? And if he does, the USA could go very far. So I suppose, Paul, for the USA, and it's probably the same for Canada and Mexico, right? Number one goal as a host nation is always just to get out of the group, which at this expanded World Cup, all three host nations should be able to do.
Yeah, and favourable seeding, of course, as well for them, and as kind of host nations, as it should help on paper. Whether that's the reality, I guess we'll find out on draw day. But yeah, you think you get a little bit of a motivation from being involved in the hosting of such a prestigious tournament. So yeah, for Canada and Mexico, I think looking at Mexico's friendlies, they've obviously been experimenting with certain things. The results haven't really been great in recent months. When you think of the 4-0 defeat to Colombia, 2-1 against Paraguay as well, a couple of draws, they haven't really been getting into that winning habit. So all of those factors, you would think, whatever they've kind of been able to work on and experiment with, by the time they get to the tournament as kind of top seeds, that should settle them down a little bit.
And Ben, with Canada and Mexico. What's your thoughts? Are you looking forward to it? And what's your expectations, man?
Yeah, my expectation is that both of them will get out of the group. It's always difficult with the host nation because, of course, they're not playing the same kind of competitive football as others. But I've been really impressed by Jesse Marsch's Canada. Marsch, remember, was a contender to take the US men's national team job, but ended up being overlooked. And now is at one of their rivals. You've got established players like Jonathan David and Alfonso Davis. And I'll be really intrigued to see whether Jaden Nelson, a cancer survivor from when he was young, he had testicular cancer as a kid. It nearly stopped him becoming a professional footballer. We interviewed him for GiveMeSport a couple of months ago. Let's see whether he makes the squad as well. And that would be a fantastic story. And then for Mexico, again, a number of top players in their squad. Raul Jimenez, a veteran striker. Santiago Jimenez, Edson Alvarez, Alexis Vega as well. And they're quite strong defensively, Mexico as well. But it remains to be seen whether they can set this tournament alight at the other end of the field. But they're very well organised. And again, to repeat something I said at the beginning of the show, and Paul raised a very good point on as well. Number one, all three host nations are in pot one. So that gives them a favourable draw. And the second point to make is that the top two in each group go through, and then some third place best finishes as well. So you would expect America, Canada and Mexico to get out of their groups and through to the knockout stage. And if they don't, I think it will be a big disappointment.
Now, for the first time since 1998, Scotland are heading to the World Cup, with Wales, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland hoping to join them via the playoffs in March. This could be the most memorable tournament in history for home nations. And that's before we've even mentioned England, who stormed through the qualifying with 8 straight wins, 22 goals scored and none conceded. Journalist and broadcaster Henry Winter has followed England through many tournaments over the years, and he joins us now. Henry, how are you? You okay?
I'm good, Joel. Yeah, nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you as always. Also seeing you at the England camp sometimes, always great. My question for you is this the best England squad you've seen in terms of cohesion and unity?
I mean, I've covered England at 14 tournaments, Euros and World Cups. I mean, definitely one of the best. I mean, before my time, it's probably the best squad since 1970. England had a fantastic squad then. But the only concern is you look at centre-halves. The centre-halves this time out are not as good as the 4 that went to Germany in 2006, if you think of Rio and Sol and Terry and Jamie Carragher. And clearly at number 9, I mean, England got one of the best centre forwards in the world, but it does tail off after that. Ollie Watkins, fine. Ivan Toney seems out of contention in Tuchel's mind. We talked to Tuchel about Tony. He brought him in, used him briefly, and has sort of not looked at him since. Need Dominic Solanke fit, but it was encouraging the other night to see Liam Delap score, because I think long term, certainly talking to FA coaches and people in the age group system at St George's Park, they feel that Liam Delap is the long term successor for Harry Kane. But it's still a drop off, and if anything happens to Harry Kane, that is a huge issue for England.
Henry, what do you make of Thomas Tuchel's approach to, I guess, keeping players, every player, even those who are seen as the standout players in the team, really on their toes ahead of a World Cup?
Come on, Jude Bellingham, that's what you're getting at. This is the Jude Bellingham question. And look, you're completely right. And you look at some of the English clubs' performances recently, and we're stacked with number 10s. Here am I, 6 months out from the tournament still, and already talking about with England. But there is an excitement about England, particularly when you look at that number 10 position. And I absolutely take your point about personality. But personality, as well as collectivity, wins big tournaments, and you need that balance. You need the players around a Maradona, as when Argentina did it, or around Messi. There has to be that balance. But you've also got to need these strong, game-changing personalities, those who lift the standards, those who deliver in crunch situations, like Jude Bellingham did against Slovakia at the Euros. But look, number 10s, Morgan Rogers seems to be the favourite. I mean, he's started most of the games at number 10 for Thomas Tuchel. that attacking style that we've seen, the dribbling style, number 10, which we've seen so effectively at Aston Villa. But you look at Eberechi Eze, the work he's doing for Arsenal, almost possibly keeping Martin Odegaard out the team. We'll see how that develops, but he's been fantastic as well. You know, we haven't even mentioned Cole Palmer, who I know he can play off the right. Interesting battle at Chelsea with Esteval there, but he's obviously a number 10 contention as well. We haven't even mentioned Phil Foden, who was Footballer of the Year, 18 months ago. And, there's Jack Grealish. Maddison's obviously out the equation, but I think that is just going to be the key debate for England in the March internationals and heading towards the tournament, because the team, you could pretty much pick the 9 starting players, but number 10 is a huge battle. So look, coming back to your really good point, it's a huge debate around the England camp. Does he trust Jude Bellingham's big personality? And to be honest, I'm very much a supporter of Bellingham, because England are going to need that sort of game changer, someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck. You're going to need that big personality. And to suggest, as some people do, some of Bellingham's critics do, that he doesn't do the work that England need out of possession is nonsense. He works so hard for the team. You saw that in the game out in Albania when he was tracking back. And then there was all this ridiculous fuss about him being upset about going off. Well, I hate seeing players just saying, yeah, happy to go off. I've done my bit. They should be fighting to stay on. Of course, you should show respect to your teammates, which he did to Morgan Rogers, by the way, a good friend of his, when he came on. He did show respect to Harry Kane. People saying, well, he didn't go over and celebrate with Harry Kane when Harry Kane scored the goal. Actually, what he was doing, Bellingham, was going and congratulating Marcus Rashford on an amazing cross, and then going and congratulating Kane. So, look, it's going to be a debate that's going to run, and we'll be talking about this. But Bellingham's got the personality that England need.
Now, Henry, I was going to ask about reverting back to a summer tournament. You think back to Qatar, and the England team looked fresh. Do you think they can replicate that at reverting back to a summer tournament after a long, hard Premier League season?
Paul, coming back to Joel's point, do you know who are going to be the 2 freshest players out at the World Cup for England? Harry Kane, Bundesliga. He has a winter break. He's not allowed to go skiing, apparently, as I found out. And Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham will have a break over the winter. So, surprise, surprise, those 2 players we would expect to be fit and fresh, having had a time off. I mean, so you talk about Harry Kane. I think Declan Rice will have played 5 times over the winter period while Harry Kane is watching Netflix or playing on his golf simulator or doing whatever they do in Germany. He'd probably be back here, Harry. So, yeah, I think that look at those 2. It's a really good point. And it is an issue that, it's the old Michel Platini quotes. You'd always go into tournaments. And whatever you think of Michel Platini as a leader of UEFA, he was a fabulous footballer for clubs and country. And you would talk to him and he would say, les Anglais, les roast beef, the English arrive at a tournament. But unfortunately, your players, they're lions in the autumn and lambs in the spring and the summer because of the exhaustion. So look, fatigue is not a word that plays well amongst the public because players are paid well. Plus, also there are a lot of overseas players who have been over here and then gone on and done really well in tournaments, and they've had. You look at Alvarez, the sort of the work rate that he put in over here, the amount of games he played. Plus, also a lot of the players who were based in the Premier League, they have crazy travel journeys, back to sort of Latin America or wherever. So, how much sympathy can there be? Look, it will be an issue. And I spoke to Tuchel about this, and I said to him, will any of your players get a break? And I actually thought he might have used the recent tournament with 2 dead rubbers to actually rest the Declan Rice and say, listen, just go to Dubai or wherever for 10 days and rest up because we need you absolutely firing. I mean, you look at the work that Declan Rice is doing now for Arsenal. If you were going to vote for a player of the year, he would certainly be on a PFA 6-man shortlist, but England need him fresh next summer. But the good thing is Bellingham and Harry Kane should be fresh.
Henry, let's talk about specific positions, strikers and midfield, because you mentioned defence in your first answer. What's the plan B for Harry Kane in terms of Thomas Tuchel's selection? And then with the midfield, one of the great stories of this season has been the form of Elliot Anderson. Do you think he's doing enough to lock down a starting spot in the centre of the park?
So I met Elliot Anderson when he was a teenager in a hotel in Bristol. He was on loan there at Bristol Rovers. He had a fantastic loan spell there. And I was introduced to him, and his parents were there. And, you know, you get the impression when you meet young players and you think, oh, this guy's got a bit of aura. There's something in his eyes. It's like, I'm not comparing them as players or as personalities, because they're completely different on both levels. But when I met Steven Gerrard for the first time as a teenager, there was something in his eyes of, I'm going places, but I'm going to keep my feet on the ground, and I'm absolutely going to deliver. And then I met him up at Newcastle United, and he was again the same, and they didn't want to lose him. They lost him for PSR reasons. He went to Nottingham Forest. I'm giving you a slightly potted history, but it's this accelerating journey. Every challenge that's been thrown at him, he is absolutely relished. So I'm completely unsurprised that he is doing so well. I've been calling on him to being a 6 even before the sort of the Euro tournament, where he did so well for England. He's nothing phases him, and he's got that Gerrard drive about him. He knows he is going somewhere. He's got good people around him, his parents, his advisor, people at the club as well. And Tuchel gets that. And there's a blend between him and Declan Rice, almost echoing, again, different personalities, but there's Zubimendi coming in at Arsenal and allowing Declan Rice to bomb on more as an 8. But Elliot Anderson, I mean, I'll tell you one thing about him. I saw him booked in England's first game at the Euro under-21s, and I thought, oh, you know, you are absolutely in the boiler room. You know, that's a fighting position. How are you going to stay on? He was fantastic for the remaining 89 minutes. He didn't hold back in tackles, but he made sure he stayed the right side. So, yeah, look, he's got everything about him. And I think you'll see more of him. Obviously, he's 22. He'll develop. I think you'll see more of him as an attacking force, as well as this fantastic defensive force. So, look, box to box, absolutely outstanding.
And quick word on Harry Kane as well. What is the plan B if Kane picks up an injury, needs resting? Who do you think's next in line to lead the line?
I mean, Ollie Watkins, I guess, and then, you know, the next change would be Marcus Rashford, who I imagine is number 2 to Anthony Gordon on the left, but obviously can play as a number 9. But it's all on Harry Kane. That winter break will help. His focus, his determination. And that is why this tournament is so important for England, because it'll basically, at World Cup level, be our Harry Kane's last tournament, certainly as a number 9. They might try him as a number 10, but England got options there. But England, it's absolutely key that Harry Kane is fit and fresh and firing at this tournament.
And just a word on Thomas Tuchel as well, because he's taking on an England project that in many ways is different to Gareth Southgate, which was very much build for the future, have plenty of tournaments to try and get the best out of another so-called golden generation. For Thomas Tuchel, it's more short-termist at the moment. Is it a case of succeed or bust for Tuchel? And could the extra pressure of having to deliver something meaningful at this World Cup actually benefit England, because he's not looking to build over the long term? He has to get something from this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I mean, we saw how good he was at Chelsea. I mean, Gareth Southgate has started England on a journey, but what England need now is someone to finish that journey. And Tuchel is a finisher. We've seen what he can do in games in the Champions League final. The tweaks that he makes, the substitutes that he sends on. He is very demanding. I mean, I put it to him recently. By the way, aren't you similar to Jude Bellingham? You know, you might call people out, but you're a high achiever. You've got high standards, and absolutely that you go and deliver. And he absolutely has to deliver. I mean, the FA have put everything on him. They put a lot of money on him, a lot of their own credibility on him. But he's a tactician, and he's a man manager, and the players obviously love him. And the most important thing is he's got a good reservoir of talent to call on.
Thank you very much, Henry. Before we go, I just want to ask you quickly, how far can England go?
I mean, semi-finals, it all depends on the draw and who they get in the knockout stages. It looks like it's been slightly kind to them in terms of 3 of the sort of the big 5 teams. They really can only meet in the semi-finals. I mean, weather and travel will be an issue. I covered the tournament in 94, and the weather is a huge issue. So in England tend not to be great in the heat. Remember Manaus, the World Cup in Brazil. So look, many variables, but England have got the squad and they've got the manager to get to the semi-finals.
Henry, thank you so much. You are one of the greatest ever. So we appreciate having you on, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Cheers.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Well, last week we spoke to the last man to captain Scotland at a World Cup finals, Mr. Colin Hendry. We got his reaction to their incredible qualification for the tournament. You can see that on the GiveMeSport YouTube channel, along with much more exclusive football content. So please make sure you check it out. So 39 of the 45 places at the World Cup have been decided, but we still have 4 slots from Europe and 2 from the Inter-Confederation playoffs to be decided. Come on, Kondo. But I want to talk to Mr. Ben Jacobs just to get your view and an understanding of Scotland. What a story, wasn't it?
Oh, an incredible story. And remember, Colin Hendry was the last captain of a Scotland side in a men's World Cup. They go and somehow beat Denmark, late drama, score, I think, 3 of the best goals in Scottish international football history. Scott McTominay with an overhead kick. Late on, Kieran Tierney passing the ball into the left-hand corner. And then to wrap it up, just when the nerves were jangling a little bit, Kenny McLean from the halfway line. So it's going to be wonderful to see Scotland there. And of course, their fans are definitely going to be some of the standout supporters at the 2026 World Cup. And even though I'm, of course, English and wearing a Croatia shirt, I do hope that the draw is kind to the Scots as well, because some of you may know I live up in Edinburgh.
Oh, nice. Well, Paul, I want you, please, to talk us through some of the other home nations involved and how the European playoffs will work.
I will do, but just on that point with Scotland, I actually watched that game. There were a large crowd of England fans watching it, and of course, as Denmark scored, there were a lot of laughs and points towards the screen, and everyone was happy. But when Scotland did it in the way that they did, even kind of some of the rival England fans, if you like, were just applauding by the end. It was one of those kind of special moments. Hopefully, I mean, some of the other home nations, they'll be hoping for their own special moment in the playoff. I mean, we talk about Wales, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. Let's start with Republic of Ireland, because they've kind of had that moment as well with Troy Parrott and the hat-trick, and, you know, to even get to this stage. And when you think after the defeat to Armenia, you just would not have expected them to end up in the position they did. And of course, then that memorable last international window with the victory over Portugal and what happened at the end against Hungary. It was incredible. So that week served up quite a couple of moments of drama with Scotland and the Republic of Ireland. For Wales and Northern Ireland, I suppose you could argue at this stage all of these games are going to be tough, but with the Republic of Ireland away against the Czech Republic, if they can get through that, a home game against Denmark or North Macedonia, and they might fancy their chances at home in Dublin. For Wales and Northern Ireland, the same pathway in the group, which means one of those, if not both, will miss out on the tournament. Northern Ireland, the groans I can tell you about when Italy were drawn. The one thing I would say is, I don't know whether I'm clutching at straws, but Italy didn't get to the Qatar World Cup in 2022, and that was mainly due to a 0-0 draw in Belfast that sent them into the playoffs. So I think between that and Gattuso coming under a little bit of pressure at the moment, to finally end this World Cup drought for Italy, maybe this kind of young, energetic team that Michael O'Neill is producing for Northern Ireland might be able to kind of be the plucky underdogs and somehow get through that. And of course, if they were able to do that, Wales or Bosnia and Herzegovina await in the final, and if Wales get through, they will have home advantage in Cardiff, and you would think Wales in Cardiff, formidable opposition for any side as well. So that is Wales under Bellamy, really exciting again. They've got a very exciting manager in Bellamy, and just to wrap up the other games as well, Turkey against Romania, Poland against Albania, Slovakia, Kosovo, and Ukraine, Sweden as well. Of course, managed by Graham Potter. We caught up with him at the playoff draw. He will have a lot more key players back. You think of Kulusevski returning from injury by then. Bergvall will be maybe back up to speed. I know he's back playing at the moment, but same with Isak. Will they be all closer to their peak fitness at this moment in time? So it's a really, really intriguing European side of the draw. As one manager at the draw actually said to me, he said, it's a bit like, this is what you could have won. When the draw happens on the 5th, you'll see who you could, that'll be dangled in front of all of these managers. And of course, many of them won't even make the main tournament. And then we look at the intercontinental draw as well. And you look at the two pathways. Pathway 1, New Caledonia against Jamaica. Steve McLaren, obviously having left the Jamaica role when they didn't automatically qualify. And we wait to see how that will impact, but they face a New Caledonia side very much motivated by the fact that they could be potential World Cup debutants. And the second pathway sees Bolivia face Suriname, who could also be a debutant. The winners of Pathway 1, New Caledonia, Jamaica, Joel, you don't need me to tell you this, will face Congo in the final. Yes. And in Pathway 2, Bolivia or Suriname will play Iraq in the final. So a lot of football to look forward to in March.
If you guys can assist me in getting any tickets for the potential match with the Congo, please let me know. I will do my absolute best to be there. But thank you very much, Paul. That's some great stuff.
You don't need any help getting tickets.
No, I probably don't. But just
he's on a sponsor's invite.
Yeah, you just never know.
He's probably already locked in for the World Cup final.
I'm maybe we'll see what happens. But thank you, Paul. That was great. Now, Qatar hosted the last World Cup tournament. Next year, there'll be one of 8 teams heading to the USA, Canada, and Mexico from Asia. They're joined by Australia, Iran, Japan, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and debutants Jordan and Uzbekistan. Now, New Zealand are the one representative from Oceania. But joining us to give us insight into the Asian teams heading to the tournaments is Saudi Pro League presenter and AFC expert Joe Morrison. I want to start off by asking you, what's really interesting is how the expanded World Cup has really impacted in general, right? Because I've been speaking to different people. I had the chance to talk to Emil Heskey the other day, and I was asking him his thoughts, and people are mixed about it. Some people are happy about it, some people are not. But I want to focus on Australia first as a country. Obviously, how do you reckon tournaments like this impact countries like Australia, who sometimes make it, sometimes are not around?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the first part of your question, the expanded World Cup is a godsend for AFC. To go from 4 teams to 8 teams, literally doubling of your participants. Well, they call it 4.5, don't they? Because one spot is a playoff spot, which Iraq will be taking on this occasion. So to go from 4.5 spots to 8.5 spots just changes the whole dynamic. Now, we all know, don't we, that FIFA are desperate to have India in the World Cup and China in the World Cup. Yet neither India nor China are going to be in this next World Cup. So it kind of defeats the purpose in that particular regard. But it does allow teams, what would you say? Would you say an easier kind of access to the World Cup? Put it this way, it gives much greater chances to teams from Asia being involved in the greatest tournament on the planet.
And also looking at specifically, like I said, Australia, they finished second behind Japan in their qualifying group. What did you make of their run?
I think they've had a really good run. And the thing is, you're absolutely right. Australia have sometimes been in, sometimes haven't been in. Huge sporting nation as well. It's great to have them in a World Cup. There's no ifs or buts about that, because they always they bring the joy, don't they? Their fans in particular. But I think having Australia is very, very important. And I think their run to the World Cup, up and down, maybe. But it doesn't matter, does it? It just matters that you get there. And I think we'll probably be talking about a lot of teams, not just AFC, but you guys will be talking about other teams from other confederations as well. It doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there.
Joe, I guess for us, we always tend to focus on maybe more the European teams and look at the strong teams like Spain and France and England. But in terms of this section, which teams do you think have the potential to just cause a few people to think, oh yeah, they're a good side at this World Cup?
Well, the standout is Saudi Arabia, isn't it? And the reason the standout is Saudi Arabia is they went to the last 16 back in, I think it was 1994 World Cup. But more than that, in more recent history, they beat Argentina in Qatar. And now it has just changed the narrative in terms of Saudi Arabia as a country, because obviously they're getting the World Cup in 2034. There's this hope. And I think people, Ben will know this because he's spent time in the Middle East, but people don't really understand the footballing landscape here. They're not that bothered about football in places like Qatar, places like the UAE. Yes, of course, they watch Real Madrid and Liverpool and Manchester United and Barcelona from a domestic club perspective. But when it comes to anything else, they're not really that bothered. However, Saudi Arabia is football through and through. The country lives, sleeps, eats and breathes football. And because of that Argentina win, and because they're going to the World Cup, and because they're also thinking ahead, Hervé Renard, I think, is got one eye, even though he might not be the coach in 2034, he's got one eye on blooding players who are maybe in their early 20s now, late teens, early 20s. And it'll be interesting to see his squad that come 2034, which we are, 9 years away? Is my maths right? Will be key to that particular group in 2034. So the answer to your question is Saudi Arabia is the one that jumps out in terms of the story.
And where are they at this moment in time? Even ahead of that 2034 tournament. But for this one, have you got a prediction of just how far they could go in this tournament?
They have got individual talents. I mean, again, AFC Player of the Year, Salam Al-Dossari. I mean, what is that now? Is that his fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh? I don't know. Player of the Year award for Asia, for the AFC, that he's won. And a few of them he's won in a row as well, successive. So players like that, Saud Abdul Hamid, I know he hasn't had a great time in terms of going abroad. He went to Roma, didn't he, I think? The fullback for Saudi, but he's still a top player, and a player that, has pushed out the boundaries of playing outside of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So there's a couple just straight off the top of my head, and you've got Vickery as well, who's been playing alongside Nacho, not every single week, but he's certainly benefited from the experience of having, a great operator like Nacho alongside him in central defence. So my point is they have key players who can, on the day, like they showed against Argentina, turn it on. And that's the nature of a knockout tournament, a World Cup tournament.
Joe, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about Qatar, the host in 2022. Are they stronger or weaker 4 years on?
That's a great question. I mean, look, they got there. They got there relatively comfortably. They beat the UAE, which was a big game here in the Middle East. That was talked about right across all of the countries here. I call it the United Nations game, Ben, because two-thirds of the players that were on the field were from countries other than Qatar and the UAE, Brazilians and Sudanese and Algerians. So I think it depends on whether they turn up. Now, I know that's a wishy-washy kind of phrase, and I hate it, and I'm sorry it's come out of my mouth. But what I mean by that is, when they were featuring in their own tournament in 2022, they were really up for it. Home support, everyone was watching them. This, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure they have the same motivation, Ben, that they did in 2022. And I think that will be key.
And just a quick word on Japan and South Korea. Japan, of course, topped their group and even beat Spain 4 years ago. These are two heavyweights, aren't they, from AFC, particularly Japan. We often see them at World Cups. What do you expect from each of these two nations?
Well, Japan in particular, you're absolutely right. I mean, they did it with, 3 games to spare or something? They qualified, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Heavyweight, South Korea and Japan. I think the difference this time with it being a 48-team World Cup, a different dynamic in terms of the group stage, I think they'll be hoping that they're no longer these sort of, what are Japan and South Korea? Always this sort of plucky runners up and get sort of close towards the finish, but you know that they're not actually going to be at the finish, except obviously the 2002 was unbelievable, wasn't it, for South Korea? And I think this time they'll be wanting to prove their credentials as the heavyweights of Asia, which you correctly pointed out, to say, look, we are legitimate to go the distance and push for the final. It's as simple as that.
Well, I have to say that wraps up when we're looking at Asia. Joe, I want to say thank you very much for your time. Great insight.
My pleasure, guys.
Okay, so as we said, Asia wrapped up, but how about the African nations? Cape Verde are the newcomers, joining some more familiar faces in the tournament like Algeria, Egypt, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Morocco, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia. Africa is a region that has often produced surprise packages in the years gone by. Hopefully the Congo soon. Maher Mezahi is the host of the African Five-A-Side podcast and is contributing. He contributes as an editor at the africancountry.com. Maher, thank you very much for joining us. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Joel, Paul, Ben. Nice to speak African football.
Yeah, it's very, very important indeed. As I mentioned off air, I'm going to be going to Morocco soon, so the excitement is real. Maher, I want to ask you about the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, back in the World Cup, first time since 2014. What are their chances, winning the World Cup in general? I know it sounds crazy me saying it, but there is this hope for an African country to win it one day. What are their hopes?
Yeah, I think the hope is not completely misplaced. I think there are some African nations that we can consider, under the right conditions, perhaps they could do it. I'm not sure if Ivory Coast are one of them. Now, the main reason is we've had major question marks about their attacking capabilities since they won the African Cup of Nations about 2 years ago. They are a team that have been winning matches 1-0, 2-1, and many of their top key attacking players, whether it's in midfield like Seko Fofana or Ibrahim Sangare or the striker Sebastien Haller, they've taken a step down in their careers. Even somebody like Simon Adingra, we expected for him to be probably playing the Yankuba Minteh role at Brighton right now, starting game in, game out. He wasn't able to impose himself at Brighton. Now he's at Sunderland, not necessarily starting matches as well. So we have questions about their attacking capabilities, but defensively they've been very good. Just one of two African nations that didn't concede a goal throughout the FIFA World Cup qualifiers alongside Tunisia.
Thank you very much for that. And also when it comes to Ghana, now, obviously they've had great historic players in the past. Are there anyone that we should be watching out for right now in the Ghana squad that should stand out for us during the World Cup?
Antoine Semenyo has been one of the hottest players in the Premier League. The way that he's developed over the last 12 to 18 months has been incredible. Especially with his finishing around goal. So he's one of those players that I don't think should be played as a 9. He should be played on the wing where he's a mismatch for smaller fullbacks so he can use his power and his pace there. He's definitely one we should look out for. Also, Leicester City's Fatau Isahaku got off to a very hot start to the year. A name that perhaps you think you wouldn't be that interested in is Jordan Ayew. But Jordan Ayew, throughout the World Cup qualifiers, was one of the best players on the African continent, particularly because of his set-piece delivery. Ghana have a set-piece coach on, and like Arsenal, they're a huge threat. They've dominated teams in the air. So that's going to be one of the keys, is their attacking line in general, whether it's Isahaku, Jordan Ayew, Mohamed Kudus, who's had a great start to the year with Tottenham as well, or Antoine Semenyo. Ghana's attacking firepower is what separates them, in my opinion.
Let's talk a little bit about Egypt. They were unbeaten in their qualifying group. Now, Mo Salah is 33 years of age. Does that mean this will be his last World Cup? Or could we see him in 4 more years' time for the centenary edition?
These days, with how professional some of these footballers are, like Cristiano Ronaldo, like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, they played late into their 30s. And Mo Salah has that about him. When his teammates talk about him, they talk about a player that was always talented when he left Egypt, but they never expected him to reach these heights. Why? They didn't think, and they hadn't seen any Egyptian leave Egypt and be this professional. They talked about him taking his shirt off for the very first time when he returned from Europe after making a move to FC Basel. And he had, all of a sudden, he was ripped. We've all seen him with his shirt off when he takes his out for a celebration. They talked about seeing muscles in his feet. He takes care of his body, and that adds longevity to a football career. Is he going to be the Mo Salah of the last 18 months? Probably not, because he's a player that likes to rely on his pace. And we know with age, usually your pace will decrease no matter how well you take care of your body. But Egypt have other great attacking options. Omar Marmoush at Manchester City. And then players like Trezeguet, formerly of Aston Villa. He's been actually one of the most clutch players for Egypt. When they need a goal or an assist, it hasn't been Salah in the World Cup qualifiers. It's been Trezeguet. Now, the main question about Egypt at the moment is their coach, Hussam Hassan. I don't know who to compare him to. Maybe has a little bit of Bielsa about him, but without the tactical acumen. He's kind of crazy. He's a ticking time bomb. And as the months have gone on and on and on and on and on, he's been clashing with the media more and more. I don't know if he's going to make it to the World Cup. So who are they going to replace him with? That's also going to be a determining factor.
We'll talk about Morocco in just a moment. I know Paul's got a question for you about one of the stories from Qatar 2022. But whilst we're kind of focusing on names like Mo Salah, I'm interested to get your take on two names that won't be there. Brian Mbeumo, because Cameroon didn't qualify. Victor Osimhen, because Nigeria are out as well. How much of a surprise that both of those nations won't be at the 2026 World Cup?
Unfortunately for both, it wasn't a huge surprise for people that have been following closely. Not because their teams aren't talented, not because they aren't fantastic players, but because the way that their federations have been governed, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Cameroon, has been catastrophic. Cameroon has Samuel Eto'o as a federation president, and he has been openly warring with the Ministry of Sport in Cameroon. Now, the Ministry of Sport pays the salary of their coach. They hired their coach. Samuel Eto'o says that is not your prerogative, it's the federation's prerogative. He's right. But the problem is the federation doesn't have the money to hire a coach. And so he relies on the government. And so there's been this weird back and forth tug of war, and the players find themselves in the middle of it. So they at times get sent, details to fly in and go to this hotel from the ministry. And the federation says, no, actually, we're in this hotel. Sometimes the federation will call up a squad and the ministry will call up a squad. And how can you as a player perform correctly when you're put in these kinds of conditions? It's impossible. And as for Nigeria, it was the same thing with the NFF, the Nigerian Football Federation. The coaching instability, they went through 4 coaches during World Cup qualifiers. You have to make the right hire. You can maybe afford to make a change once. You cannot make a change 4 times. That coupled with Victor Osimhen's injury problems is what really put Nigeria in a difficult position. But both Mbeumo and Osimhen are fantastic players, and they both performed well during the World Cup qualifiers.
Maher, we all remember Morocco's performance in 2022. What impact do you think that will have had on African football in general going into this World Cup?
It's really the story of African football at the World Cup is incremental progress. Like 1970 was the first time an African side picked up a point. And then 1978 was the first time we had a win. And then 82, the first time we had 2 wins. 86 was the first time we made it out of the group stages. As World Cups continue to go on and on and on and on and on, African teams tend to do better. Pele famously said that, African team would win a World Cup by 2000. I've actually done some digging into that. I'm not sure he's ever said that, but it's attributed to him. But I think we're getting closer and closer to that stage, actually, as Africa continues to produce world-class players, and now we're starting to couple it with very, very good coaches. Morocco's coach, Walid Regragui, had his side perfectly set up to play out of possession and counterattack at the World Cup. That's exactly what Morocco needed. Now, the other thing that I think is going to increase Africa's chances is that we have 9.5 teams, so 9 or 10 teams, hopefully 10 with DR Congo if they qualify. And we've in the past had 5, and 3 of them would make it to the knockout stages. I think at the most recent World Cup. I mean, we deserve more teams, and there's not a big drop-off between number 5 and number 10 in Africa. So I don't think this is going to dilute the quality. Think about the teams that missed the last World Cup: Algeria, Ivory Coast, who ended up being champions. These are, teams that, DR Congo. These are teams that have proven that they can be competitive, and so I think the increased number of squads is also going to help our chances.
Okay, let's put you on the spot. Which African team goes furthest in this summer's World Cup? And this might be difficult as well because the draw's not made yet, but what stage as well?
I think Senegal. They have the best side on paper. Excuse me. If you talk about strikers, they got strikers. Nicholas Jackson, Sadio Mane, Iliman Ndiaye has been playing beautifully in the pocket, the number 10 pocket. You talk about midfield, Pape Matar Sarr, Idrissa Gueye, if he doesn't fight with his teammates. Lamine Camara from Monaco is incredible. They have defenders. Malik Diouf, the left back from West Ham, is going to be a superstar. They have goalkeepers. They have it all. And on top of that, their former coach, Aliou Cissé, did a great job in laying these foundations. He was there for almost 10 years. But his successor, Pap Thiaw, has them playing a more attacking style of football. Under Aliou Cissé, he was there for nearly 100 matches. Senegal only scored 4 goals 3 times. Under Pap Thiaw, they've already matched that, and he's been in charge for less than 20 matches. So that more kind of attacking brand coupled with the squad quality is what I think is going to push them the furthest, as long as they don't pick up any injuries. Because Sadio Mane missed the 2022 World Cup with injury. That was such a big blow. If they can all stay healthy, I think they'll go far. I think they have a chance to match Morocco's performance. Not win it, but another semifinal berth.
Maher, I want to say thank you very much for your analysis, etc. You are the man, and I'm looking forward to potentially linking up with you in December. Please, can you let the people know? Bring everyone. I see well, Ben might be in Croatia. I'm not sure yet because of what he's wearing right now, but we'll see what happens anyway. But if you can please let the people know where they can find you.
Sure. So I'm on X at Mezahi Maher. So my last name and then my first name. Or you can also find me on YouTube if you type in the African Five-A-Side podcast. Thank you guys for having me on.
The expansion of the World Cup in 2026 means we will see a number of debutants at the tournament. The likes of Jordan, Cape Verde, Curacao, and Uzbekistan will be represented. And Paul, you've been taking a closer look at some of those teams.
Well, there's only one place to start, really. Curacao, the smallest nation to ever qualify for a World Cup. That was previously Iceland, not anymore. They have been terrific on the way to qualification. They have a big Dutch influence. So Curacao, the smallest nation, then Iceland. After that, Cape Verde, known as the Blue Sharks, a population of just 525,000. What, again, a magnificent achievement, a real underdog story. And again, they're ready to write their name into the history books.
It's really hard to sum up into a few words, I suppose. Like it really is the stuff of dreams. Like I say, any aspiring footballer starting out, they dream of playing at a World Cup, and to sort of like realise that dream has come true. Like it's overwhelmed with emotions, to say joy, like sort of relief, and just really looking forward to what's ahead of us.
Third smallest nation to reach the World Cup, a population of just 525,000.
We've shown the growth and we've shown improvement. When I first came into the setup, we were sort of in a bit of a transitional period where they were looking at getting new players into the squad. And when I arrived there, we had some really good players in that squad already, like players like Ryan Mendes, Vizinha, Stopera, Gary Rodriguez. They're all there in that group still, and then we started to introduce some new blood, some new talent, maybe younger profile of player. Like I said, we had a really good World Cup qualifying campaign and a real good AFCON qualifying campaign, which we qualified for the one in Cameroon. And I think we probably caught people a lot, surprised, I should say, of how well we done. And I think off the back of that, a lot of players who maybe had the dual eligibility, like myself, and like so many Cape Verdeans who we rely on, the diaspora of players, like I think they started to realise that Cape Verde was a real viable option in terms of playing international football, and it wasn't just like a token. We were actually there competing.
Tell me about your personal journey in from starting out in international football to the World Cup. Am I right in saying that it involves LinkedIn?
Yeah, it does. It's not your traditional way, I suppose, of playing international football, but I had a LinkedIn account that I set up in college, and so I connected with a few friends, and I suppose the whole idea is you're meant to connect with potential employers and hopefully get a job over down the line. And I remember one time I was connected with the manager at the time of Cape Verde, Rui Aguas, and he messaged me in Portuguese, which I didn't speak at the time. So I just left it. Thought it was just like a welcome message or a spam message, and I just thought, there's no need to respond to that. But thankfully, 9 months later, he messaged me again in English, asking what I think about the proposal. He said, so after Google Translation, which I should have done the first time, he basically asked him, would I be interested in playing for Cape Verde? They're looking at getting some new players into the squad. And I jumped at the opportunity, just like apologised profusely first, and just said, look, there's this opportunity still there. I'd love to be a part of it. And thankfully it was.
What's your ideal draw? Who do you want to see?
It's hard to sort of say. Like for me, like Brazil has always been the biggest team for me at the World Cup, and if you to be able to come up against them, that would be amazing. Portugal as well, another really strong side, and I think just the connection with Cape Verde as well would be really special. After that, like it's sort of like you take anyone to solid. There's going to be so many big teams there like that. This is where you want to test yourself on the biggest stage against the best players. I'd welcome everybody.
What about family? How have they reacted from the moment you qualified?
Yeah, they've been overjoyed. They really have. Like I said, I've had tremendous support from my family, like the whole way. Like whether it was the first time I played for Cape Verde or till the last game where we qualified for the World Cup, and it's just a real excitement about it. Like, and just the sort of thought of going to a World Cup with someone like with some skin in the game, I suppose you could say. Like, and me and my wife, we recently had our baby boy Diego, like, and to be able to plan his first holiday to be a World Cup is just an amazing feeling.
Of course, joining those two, Jordan and Uzbekistan, brilliant achievement for both of those teams as well. Uzbekistan, by the way, now managed by the legendary Fabio Cannavaro, a World Cup winner. He only took charge in October. The boss who was in charge until then is now his assistant, and they, of course, are going to the tournament as well. But those the current four, and a special mention to Haiti as well. Although this isn't their first time, it is their first time back at a World Cup since their one and only appearance in 1974. And I was delighted to link up recently with Hannes Delcroix, the Burnley defender, who spoke a little bit about just what it means to them to qualify.
Of course, it's always nice to have the chance to play against like a big country. But like for us, yeah, it's just we have to focus on ourselves, and we will see who we come up against.
Have you any thoughts about individual players that you'd like to come up against in your position, obviously?
Yeah, of course. I think like the players I would love to play against for sure is probably like Messi or Ronaldo. Like I've never done that, of course, or like Mbappe. Just like the big stars. But like I said, like for me, any opponent is an opportunity. So I will be happy with every player I will come up against.
Can you put into words what kind of an achievement this is?
Yeah, this is just really big for Haiti, for the people, for the federation. Like it's been like around 50 years that we have qualified for the World Cup. So to achieve this in this difficult moment for Haiti, it means a lot. So yeah, we're happy to have this achievement.
What's been the key to your success in qualifying?
I would say like we're just one big family. We stick together. We work for each other, and then yeah, just keep going. Even though like because there was a moment, for example, when we won against Nicaragua and then we lost 3-0 against Honduras, but we didn't keep our head down. We just keep going, and we knew we had to win 2 games to be able to qualify, and we did that. So yeah, we just it's never over with us, I would say.
How far can Haiti go in the tournament?
Well, like I think I heard from someone that Haiti has never like won a single game in the World Cup. So that for us will be already a goal. And then like yeah, it's up to us to go as far as possible. I think we just have to believe in ourselves, and yeah, to get as far as possible in the tournament. So yeah, I think we Haitian people, or us players, we are not really there to just be there. Like we want to show ourselves as well and our qualities.
You mentioned it earlier about difficult times for the country at the moment. Do you think this kind of football achievement can help galvanize everybody, get people together?
Yeah, I think so. Like in a difficult time now, like you can see like when we were qualified, like how many Asian people were like on the road, like singing and dancing, and like there were so many. So I think for them it's as well a big deal and a big achievement, and hopefully it will like change a little bit the minds of the people there, and that we just one country and we all together, one family, and hopefully it gives a lot of positive.
Well, it's great to hear from some of these first-time nations, man. Great underdog stories. Paul, did you enjoy it?
I did. It was really inspiring. We're seeing, I think a big consideration for the expansion of the World Cup to 48 teams. Gianni Infantino's always said that he wants more nations to experience this World Cup, and that's what's happening with these teams, and you can feel the excitement from them. And there may yet still be a couple, as we mentioned earlier. New Caledonia, Suriname may yet get through the playoffs, as could Kosovo and Albania. So there might be a few more added to that. But Yeah, do you know what? Some really good stories, and even nations like Haiti, who, although they're not first timers, they're at their first tournament since 1974. So yeah, a lot of great stories around this World Cup, and it was great and inspiring to hear from them.
So that brings us to the end of this week's Market Madness. But before we go, Paul and Ben, I have to ask you, who's going to be winning the World Cup?
Paul, you go first. I need thinking time.
I'll tell you who it won't be. Germany, because I've seen them recently. I wasn't impressed. So Germany, I'm ruling them out. I'm going to go for Brazil. I think they haven't won it in a while, and I think
Brazil.
Yeah, do you know what?
Big shout.
Yeah, something romantic about Brazil coming and winning the tournament. Although, it's probably going to be Ronaldo in Portugal. Ronaldo's going to have his Messi moment. I'm settling on Brazil.
All right, Ben.
Croatia, because I'm wearing the shirt. And then England second. Actually, I don't think England will win it, unfortunately. I agree with Henry Winter. England semi-finals. Croatia naturally always reach the business end, but I'm not so sure that they will go all the way. And I'm therefore going to go boring and say Spain, a country that we haven't really touched upon. They go a bit under the radar because Argentina defending champions, America and Canada and Mexico are the hosts, so getting a lot of attention. And England because of Thomas Tuchel. But I feel like people outside of the countries are not saying that much about Spain or France. And both of them, of course, are very strong. And I feel like Spain are going to win the 2026 World Cup.
You know what? I want to say the Congo, but that's just me being silly. So I'm
going
to say, they're not even there yet. Yeah, I want to say, I think it's going to be France, if I'm to be really honest with you. I think they've got a great attacking side. But before we go, I want to say, please make sure to the audience, if you haven't seen the Enzo Fernandez interview with Ben Jacobs, make sure you check it out on YouTube and at GiveMeSport website as well. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I don't know how Ben does it, man. He's always with the stars. But we will be back with more exclusive content coming in the next weeks. And January is fast approaching. It's a good time to let you know that we will be back every week during the transfer window. Until then, you can listen back to the podcast on the app of your choice. Just search for Market Madness. For more info on any of the stories we've discussed and much more, please head over to GiveMeSport.com, and I'll see you next time. Peace.